Hi, my name is Dr. Michael Leverone. I'm a veterinarian at Reading Animal Clinic here in Reading, Mass. I'm also a volunteer veterinarian at the Alaska Iditarod race. My family and I visited Alaska in the summer of 2011, and one of the many things we did there was visit the kennels of the Seavey family near Seward, Alaska. And between that and visiting Iditarod headquarters in Wasilla, it made me realize that the Iditarod is a very big deal in Alaska, and many volunteers, including volunteer veterinarians, are needed to get the race going every year. I did do the race 2 weeks worth in 2012, including a 3-day education seminar prior to the start of the race, which all novice volunteers have to take. The race starts on the first Saturday of March every year, and generally runs about 14 days. The record for completing the race is about 8.5 days. Some people take longer than 2 weeks to do it. So all in all, anywhere from 45 to 55 veterinarians participate in the race. Our role is to examine the dogs, all of them if possible, at every checkpoint. The race is officially 1,049 miles long, give or take, because there are 2 changes in the route that take place on alternate years. There's a northern route and a southern route in the middle portion of the race. And so the mileage varies. There are something like 24 checkpoints along the length of the trail between Anchorage and Nome. And as the racers progress, veterinarians need to be in place at the checkpoints through which they're passing, so that we can examine the dogs, try to pick up problems before they become big problems, assist the mushers with advice and medications, things of that nature, take care of any dogs that they have to drop from the race, and many of them do. The mushers start with a maximum of 16 dogs per team, and I believe they need to finish with at least 5. Movement up and down the trail is interesting and again attractive to me. The Iditarod Air Force is the only way to move people and personnel and supplies up and down the Iditarod Trail. So the Iditarod Air Force is a group of approximately 14, I think, volunteer pilots. They're required to have considerable experience as bush pilots, but they volunteer their time and their airplanes. The Iditarod Trail Committee pays for the gasoline, and but they ferry in their Cessna 185s and so forth. They ferry the vets, communications people, the dogs back and forth, supplies back and forth, and they're the lifeblood of the operation. The Alaskan Huskies on the winning teams generally run 45 to 55 pounds, and they are quite lean. They're consuming anywhere from 7,000 to 10,000 calories per day. So, and studies have shown that there's very little in the animal world that consumes that much energy and puts out that much work. They like it best when it's 50 below. The trail is faster, and when it's too warm, the dogs can overheat. During a 24-hour period, they probably are running maybe 8 hours and split up into several sprints, if you will. There are required rest stops for the teams throughout the race. You know, there's one 24-hour layover where they're required to stay at the checkpoint for 24 hours before leaving, and there are 2 other 8-hour layovers. And one of these, you know, there's some checkpoints where the layover is required, and in other cases, the musher can do the layover at a checkpoint of their choosing. The vast majority of these dogs are just a pleasure to work with. Most have very sweet dispositions. When they get into a checkpoint, especially further down the trail, they're exhausted. They just, you know, they look for the nearest pile of straw to lay in, to get themselves off the snow, and they, you know, the musher's first job when they get to a checkpoint is to take care of the dogs before they take care of themselves. So by the end of the race, these mushers are hallucinating from lack of sleep, lack of rest. They suffer a lot more than the dogs do, I think. They wear booties and sometimes sleeves on the legs if they're punching through deep snow, crusty snow, then the backs of the legs can get injured, so they can wear sleeves on their legs. They usually wear a coat over the body, over the chest and the back. Each dog has to undergo a thorough physical exam, including blood work and an electrocardiogram, and each is microchipped so they can be identified individually. Not the first year, but last year I did see the start of the race in downtown Anchorage. And that start is actually a ceremonial start. They only go about 18 miles that first day. And then they crate all the dogs up, and then everybody moves to Wasilla, to Iditarod headquarters, and that's where the race officially starts on the first Sunday of March. The first year I got to, I think, 4 different checkpoints out of the 24. The second one on the trail is called Squentna, and it's right on the checkpoint is right on the frozen river that goes through there. I think it's the Squentna River. And because it's so early in the race, the participants in the race are all bunched up. So on that particular day, the first musher came in, I think, around 8:30 at night, and it was solid work from there until 6 in the morning. And it was 20 degrees below that night. It was the first time I got to see the northern lights, which was exciting. When we checked the dogs out, there are certain forms that we have to maintain along the way to try to keep track of the individual canine athletes participating in the race, any particular problems they might have, anything we might want to look out down the road. You know, each checkpoint, you know, prior to the race even starting, each checkpoint, every musher has 2 or 3 burlap sacks of food for him or her, food for the dogs, spare parts, like runners for the sled if they need that, things of that nature. They're provided with, at each checkpoint, each musher gets a bale of straw. First thing he does is open that up and shakes out a flake for each dog so they can lay on top of it. Some of the checkpoints are in larger centers where, you know, one of them is at basically a lodge, I think, and so there are indoor facilities there. And I'm not familiar with all of the places along the trail because I've only been to 4 or 5 checkpoints. There are others like McGrath and Unicolete are larger towns, you know, 700, 800 people, and in those places there are community centers where people can go in, get a hot meal and sleep and even get a shower. And then there are other places where, you know, it's a wall tent with a wood stove. 2 other places I have been to are Koyuk and Elam. These are native villages along the Bering Sea, and you're basically in like a community center there. Some of the places have, like in Squentna, which is the second checkpoint, there's kind of a lodge, a house, if you will, and the bottom floor is, there's a whole crew of, I don't know, at least 24 people that most of them are from the Seattle area, and they come every year, and a lot of them have been doing it for 15, 16 years. It is an incredible experience, and it's a pleasure working with the dogs and trying to help them out. It's a pleasure working with the mushers for the most part. You meet many, many people along the trail, not just other veterinarians, but people from all walks of life who have an interest in the race and who volunteer their time. Something like 2,000 volunteers are necessary to run this big event. And just the scenery is beautiful. I like being outdoors to begin with. Being able to see the northern lights, being able to travel around in small planes, which I love too. It's just a great all-around experience.